Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jonathan Dick.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's really exciting to be here. This is an awesome setup and an awesome conference it's been this week. I've been really surprised by the amount of feedback and the amount of positive things that I've heard from people on some of the stuff I've been working on. I had no idea that people would be this interested in something as mundane as barcode scanning. But I really appreciate you coming up to me and saying, hey, this is what we're doing with your product or your component. It's awesome to see. So thanks for that. And just curious, barcodes. How many people, when you see those QR codes on a poster, how many times are you actually going and scanning those things with your phone? Does anyone actually do that? No. Occasionally one. OK, that's about what I thought. So that's why I thought barcode scanning, who cares? But it's awesome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of barcodes, just because it's kind of interesting to know what they are, understand where they came from. They're really old, well, in my perspective anyway. 1940s, they started using these things for railway cars to scan in railway cars as a quick and easy way to catalog and inventory them. Started hitting the supermarkets in about the 70s. Wrigley was one of the big pushers of barcodes at the time. And really, barcodes are just a unique identifier, and that's where they came from. That's how they started out. So it's an easy way for us to get that information and then look up more information about the product from a system. There's two main kinds of barcodes that we refer to, typically. One-dimensional, which is probably the ones we're more familiar with. And these are one-dimensional, so they're really only using the horizontal space to have data attached to them, or to represent data. It's the vertical up and down lines. And then there's the 2D barcodes, the two-dimensional, where we decided, hey, well, we've got all this vertical space. Let's use that as well so we can get more data in there. And that's where we start seeing things like URLs and addresses and email addresses and all that kind of thing stored. There's all sorts of different formats of both of these kinds, QR codes, PDF 417s, data matrix. And then in 1D, there's UPC, EAN, ITF, and there's just tons of them. But those are sort of the more popular ones. And one of the things that's been interesting over the past few years is this huge mobile explosion that we've seen. And as a symptom of that, or as a side effect of that, a good side effect, we've seen really high-quality cameras and really fast processors all bundled into these little tiny computers that are in our pockets. So that's really allowed us to do a lot more with the data that's around us, and the data that's around us in this particular talk being barcodes. So we can now take images and analyze them with these fast CPUs and little but powerful cameras, and read barcodes, whereas we used to have to use lights and reflection of the lights to figure out the space in between data. So everyone pretty much in their pocket has a barcode scanner now. But the other thing that's happened is this evolution of the idea of a wallet. So I don't think anyone doesn't carry a wallet with them at this point yet. Maybe some people do. But all the different mobile platforms now seem to have a concept of this wallet. Apple kind of kicked things off with their Passbook. Windows Phone 8 now has a wallet, and Samsung has also announced a wallet as well. Well, the interesting thing about these wallet apps is, despite all this new technology we have, like NFC, they're still all pretty much using barcodes. So barcodes are kind of this universal, simple way to pass data back and forth. So you might have your frequent flyer card on your phone in your wallet app. You might have your Starbucks card, and you walk in and scan it, grab a coffee, walk out, and they take the money off your account. Now, for us here who are developers, and specifically those of us who love C#, we're all here because we like Xamarin stuff. How do we scan barcodes? Barcodes are kind of, scanning barcodes is kind of the more interesting thing to do, and maybe the more useful thing to do in a lot of our apps. So there's a bunch of different options. You could do it yourself. Been there, done that. Don't try it. There's something called Red Laser, which is an SDK that's commercially available for you to use in your apps. It's very elegant. It's well done. It's not free. There's Shop Savvy, which is another SDK that's also not free, but also very polished, although I think they're still in beta with their Windows Phone support. So not quite cross-platform there. And if you're looking for an open source or a free option, well, there's ZBar. Yes, I said Z because I'm Canadian. And it's pretty good, but it's LGPL licensed, which may be a little bit restrictive for some people. Then there's Zebra Crossing, and that's the one that we're talking about mostly today. Zebra Crossing started as a Java project, a Java open source project, and has since been ported to a few other platforms. But it's Java. So I decided I needed a barcode scanner, and today I have this thing called zebracrossing.net.mobile. Now, it's a weird name, but we'll get to that. So my journey through this barcode thing was to start out with Red Laser and Shop Savvy and make bindings for those things. And when I started, they didn't have Windows Phone support, and I had an app that was going to be also in Windows Phone, and I needed to have barcode scanning working there too. So I did start binding some libraries, and I got that working, but it didn't give me the most control at that time that I wanted, and it added a little bit of cruft to my apps. So I didn't love that solution. So I started looking for a C# port. And there is one. There's one in the official repository for Zebra Crossing. But last I checked, it was a little bit old, a little bit dated. It wasn't quite on par with the Java version of the project. So I kept looking. And like any good .NET developer who's trying to do something with Java, I ended up at IKVM. Now that's great, except it didn't work so well on Monotouch. Obviously now Xamarin.ios. At the time, the JIT errors were preventing me from doing some things I want. And there was a port of IKVM that was supposed to help, but it was poorly documented, hard to do. So I kind of put that one on the back burner, and I started to look at this thing called Sharpen. Now, if you hadn't heard of Sharpen, I hope you have, because there's an awesome blog post that Xamarin has done some time ago where they used Sharpen to convert the Android Java source to C# and make it way better than the Java version. So I went down that road, and I got pretty far. I got things compiling. I made most of the things work, but still was having problems and still was working on it. And at the same time, someone managed to say on Twitter, hey, how did you miss this zebracrossing.net library that's available on Codeplex? And I have no idea. But I'm glad that they showed me it, because it's really awesome. It's a fairly manual port, a fairly manual C# port of the Java code. It does decoding and encoding. So the zebracrossing.net library itself, you can basically give it some image data, and it will tell you back if there's a barcode, and if there is, what that barcode is. It can also encode barcodes. So you could say, give me a QR code with this value, and it'll spit out image data for you. So really thankful for this project, and I want to give a shout out to the author, Mike Lian, who's been incredibly helpful in my efforts to bring that as a foundation to Xamarin stuff and Windows Phone in my live barcode scanning project. So big thanks to Michael. And honestly, it's an awesome project. It's actually an improvement on a project. He's actually implemented more encoding and decoding formats than the original Java project has now, which is really cool. So zebracrossing.net.mobile. Talking about the name, it is the last component in the component store. And I would love to see someone beat me to that honor. But I wanted to keep the name consistent with using the library zebracrossing.net. So that's where we have zebracrossing.net.mobile, which is a big mouthful. And again, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. Like, it's an awesome library. It's cross-platform. You know that. It's Windows Phone, iOS, Android. And my goals were basically simply what you see here. They're easy to use. The concept of scanning barcodes really isn't that difficult. It's like, here's an image. Tell me a value from a barcode in that image. So I wanted it to be easy, 2 lines of code. I wanted a live barcode scanning view, and that's something that zebracrossing.net, the base project, doesn't give you. It's more generic of a project, and that's its goal. So I wanted to build on top of that so that I can hold up my camera, hold up my phone to a barcode, and something would just automatically scan, because that's really cool. It wasn't good enough to just have to take a picture, decode. Oh, no, there was no barcode there. Take another picture. And I wanted it to be customizable. But I also wanted it to be easy, so had to have a little bit of give and take. By default, zebracrossing.net.mobile has a overlay view that I've kind of made for you. It's just simple semi-transparent bars on the top and bottom with a red laser going through the middle of it. It's a little skeuomorphic, I apologize, but I think in this context it makes sense for users. It's also in the component store now. And that's actually what really pushed me to build this. I had it in my mind after working with the code myself that I wanted to share it and reuse it. Once the Xamarin Component Store was announced, I knew it was a perfect fit for that, so I immediately began working on a full-on component that would go in the store, and I'm really happy that it's there today. Now, I'm going to show you how to do a few things. And if you've done the mini hacks already, the first example is going to be a little bit simple, but I'll breeze through it pretty quickly because it's only 2 lines of code. So I've got this project set up here. And it's an Android project. And I've done a few things already that I'll just take you through quickly. I've actually already added the zebracrossing.net component. You can see it here. And if you had just added it now, you would get some information about getting started and how to use it and all that stuff that you may have seen already. Adding that component brought in the 2 references, one to the base zebracrossing.net library compiled against Android, or Xamarin.Android. And the other one, the library that sits on top of that, which is my zebracrossing.net mobile. I've also created 2 layouts here. The first layout I'll show you is just a simple main screen, 3 buttons. So we're going to do 3 different things. And an image that we'll use as a placeholder right now, and we'll stick a barcode in it from the 3rd demo. I've also pre-created an overlay, and just to give you an idea of how you can do this on Android for your custom overlay. So I've got just with a normal designer, super easy to use, a really simple layout. I've got 2 images laid on top to do some branding, and I've got 2 buttons. So I'm going to use the flash button to obviously turn the flash on and off. So that's a really simple overlay. We can use that. Nothing fancy going on here in Android. So the first sample, I've got a few using statements already in here, just so you can see I'm using both the base zebra crossing and mine. And I'll just go through this code. It's all set up plumbing. It's the layout being set to the content and the buttons being mapped. And then I've got the buttons set to some click handlers. Now, one of the cool things lately is you can see that async keyword on my method or my event handler. So I had kind of planned ahead for this async stuff, and we can take advantage of that now finally, which is awesome. So all we need to do for our simple sample is say var scanner equals new mobile barcode scanner. And on Android, the one thing that's important is, and on this version, I apologize, it doesn't force you to do this, but you need to pass it a context. And this is nothing new to you if you've worked with Android before. And then I'm going to get my result, so var result equals, and I'm going to await scanner.scan. That's it. Well, that's 2 lines of code. OK, it's a little bit of cheating. I'm not doing anything with the result yet. So let's come up here and make a method, handle result, of type zebracrossing.result. And all I want to do with this result is put it in a toast just so we can see that it actually worked. So by default, I'm going to say var message equals no barcode. And then the result that zebra crossing passes back to you can be null. And if it's null, it means that the scanning was canceled or there was no barcode found in a particular image. So we do need to check for that. So if result is not equal to null, then I want to change the message to barcode plus result. And the result has a few different properties on it. We got a barcode format, which is one of the things we're most interested in. And we've also got the text, which is the actual value that was scanned in. So those are the 2 things of interest to us right now. There's a little bit of stuff left over from, I'm guessing, some of the old Java, as this is coming right out of zebracrossing.net. So we'll say result.text, and then I'm also going to print out the result barcode format. Now I actually have to do something with this, so I'll make a toast. Just put the message that we constructed in there, and I'm going to make it a long toast, just so it sticks around and it's easier to see. So all we need to do is come back and say handle result that we just got from the scanner. So that's really simple. I'm going to build and run that quick. You probably, hopefully already done this in your mini hack, so it's nothing new. We'll flip over to the document camera here as the app compiles and is running. So I've got a barcode here, just a simple one-dimension linear barcode, and I've got the scanner showing now, or the app. So I've got my 3 buttons. I'll just hit simple scan. And you can see, actually, before I scan, there's that overlay, the default overlay. You can kind of see it with the red laser in the middle of it. And I'm just going to bring a barcode in to scan. And, oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't show my toast. So trust me, it did scan. We'll catch the next one the next time around. So flip back to my computer, and we've got to show this. I always forget to do that. So that's the simplest example, but that's not good enough for everyone, and I understand that, and that's one of the goals of the project, was to make it so you could customize it. So we're going to create another scanner, and again, pass in the context of it. And this time, we're going to say to the scanner that we want to use our own custom overlay. Now, we need to make that overlay, and on Android, we need to inflate the overlay since we're using that custom overlay layout that I've created earlier. So I'll set up the overlay to be var overlay equals layout inflator dot inflate, and I've got the resource already set up, so it's resource.layout.custom overlay. And I want to assign just a null root view group, because that view group will be reassigned by the scanner when it takes that custom overlay. So now we've got that overlay inflated. The next thing that we need to do, if you remember, there's a couple buttons on there. Well, we want to wire those up to actually be useful. So we'll go and find the buttons. So I'm going to go var button flash equals overlay.find view by ID of type button. And it's resource.id.button flash. So that should get us a reference to our button, and we got to do the same thing for the cancel button. Find view by ID of type button, and resource.id.button cancel. So now we have to hook up the buttons to do something. And we want to toggle the flash with the flash button, so we need a reference to the scanner, and we have that already, and that's where we call in to toggle the flash. So I'll say button flash dot click plus equals, and I've got the open and close anders there. Going to change those event property names so they don't collide, and I'm just going to say here scanner.toggleTorch. So the scanner has a number of different properties and options, and one of them is to toggle the torch. You can set the torch to whatever you want it to be if you already know the state. And the other thing that we can do is actually call the cancel ourselves on the scanner. So scanner.cancel. Rename these variables again. So that should wire up our buttons for us. And the other thing we need to do now that we've got our overlay view set up is we actually need to assign that to the scanner. So scanner.customoverlay equals overlay. And at this point, it'd be good enough for us to do the same thing we did above and just do await the scanner.scan. But one of the things I want to show you is to try and use the barcode formats that you're expecting. By default, Zebra Crossing adds in all the possible barcode formats. And that gets really cumbersome for it to process, especially when you're in a live scanning view. So whenever possible, if you already know that you're only scanning QR codes, just support QR codes to scan, because it'll make things a lot faster for you. So to do that, we need to create some scanner options. So I'm going to go var opt equals new mobile barcode scanning options. And opt dot, and then here's all of our options. Now, some of these are less interesting and you probably won't use. On Android right now, auto rotate happens regardless of what you do. And the ones we're interested in really are possible formats. You might want to use try harder. It just makes the algorithm process a little bit differently. It's a little bit more intense, but sometimes it picks up barcodes that it otherwise wouldn't. So I want to actually do possible formats. And by default, like I said, they're all already added. So we need to clear out that list. And then we can add in our own format that we want. And I'm going to say barcode format.QR code. So at this point, it's relatively the same. We want var result equals await scanner.scan. But you can see here that we've got a couple different overloads. And one of them is accepting mobile barcode scanning options, which we just created. So that should pretty much get us our result that we're looking for. Call into the handle result again that we created for the last item, and we're good to go. So I'm going to run that sample. Hopefully I did everything I meant to. And I'm going to show you, I'll try scanning the 1D barcode again. It shouldn't work. If we can flip over to the document cam. Things are loading up. And you'll see that custom overlay come up. And one of the things when you're making a custom overlay, remember to set the transparency of the main view in your overlay to be transparent. Otherwise, it'll just take over the whole scanning view. One moment. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to hit Custom Overlay Scan. And you can see it pops up with our icons at the top, and we've got our buttons at the bottom here. So I can hit the flash button, and that's quite blinding. So let's turn the flash off. And now, just try scanning a one-dimensional barcode. And that's not going to work for us because we disabled it. So that's great. So I got a QR code in here, and there we go. We scanned Xamarin Test Cloud URL. It's a QR code. So that's pretty simple to do, too. So I'm hoping that that gives everyone a little bit of control over what they're actually trying to make their scanner look like. And the last example I want to show you is how to encode a barcode. So this has nothing to do with my part of the project that I've created. It's part of the core zebracrossing.net library. But it's really useful if you actually want to generate barcodes. And again, it's really simple to do. All we need to do is create a barcode writer. So var writer equals new barcode writer. And we have to set the format. So in this case, let's create a QR code. And we'll get our result from writer.write. And we can put whatever string we want in here because it is a QR code. Now, if we're using a UPC code or something one-dimensional that only accepts certain digits, you may get exceptions if you're not putting the right data in. So we'll put evolve rocks. And you'll notice that the return type of the write method here is the android.graphics.bitmap. So that's going to be an image file of whatever platform you're working with. On iOS, it's a UI image. So we've got a result, and now we want to do something with it. So I've had that image view on the main screen that has a placeholder Xamarin logo. We're just going to go in there, and I'm going to run on the UI thread because that's the smart thing to do. And open and close Anders. And I'm going to simply set the image view barcode and the set image bitmap method, and I'll assign it the result that we just created. So that's pretty simple to do, too. You can do that for not every barcode format that's supported for decoding is supported for encoding, but there's a good chunk of them there. So flip over to the document cam one more time while this is compiling. Oh. And it's installing the application. The joys of Android development. Too bad the emulator's not much better. So we're going here, I promise. We're almost done, and we'll press the encode button, and we'll all be happy. It'll show a QR code, and we can all cheer and clap and everything. So barcodes are awesome, and I hit the encode button, and there we go. Simple as that. And it's pretty fast on Android, too. It's pretty fast on all the devices. So it's really easy to work with this library. It's really easy to work with the base Zebra Crossing library. So I think you should use it. So I'm going to flip back to my slideshow. I've got one more slide for you. When I said at the beginning I was really surprised at the feedback that I had on this, I really meant it. I have spent a lot of time working on it, but at the same time, knowing how many people would have been trying it or using it in the mini hack as much, I would have loved to have spent more time. And that's something that I have a lot of energy now about going forward. I'm going to make this a lot better. It's really great to see people excited about it. So iOS is going to get the next wave of improvements. Basically, I've switched out the capturing engine. It's doing proper AV capture session stuff now. So if you had tried doing this on an iPad 3 before, like the Retina display, it wasn't a fun experience, and I apologize. But that's going to get better. The other thing that I've had some feedback about is for tablet scanning, you don't always want to have it overtake your whole view. And you'll notice here that when we did the scanning, it was a new activity that popped up, and we didn't have any control over what we could do with that. We could do the custom overlay, but what if we only wanted to show that live scanning view in a portion of our screens, if we had a tablet, for instance? So one of the things I'm working on is capturing that functionality within a view level item. So on iOS, it's a UI view. I have that mostly working. On Android, it's going to be a fragment, and Windows Phone a control. So you can really stick that view with, it'll come with the live barcode scanning preview, the overlay views on top of it, everything that you can do now, it'll come with, but wherever you want to put it on in your app. I want to add auto rotation. That's coming for iOS first. Should be coming for the rest of the platforms. And performance is a big thing, too. On Android, it runs pretty well on my Nexus 4, but there's so many devices out there that I'd love to do a little bit more performance testing on. So that's Zebra Crossing net.mobile. And I guess if anyone has any questions, I will take them. In the back. OK, so the question was, works for postal, asking about PDF 417, data matrix, and GS 128. The latter two, for scanning, definitely work. Encoding, I believe both of the latter two will work. I'm not sure of the first one. I'll talk to you after, and I'll get back to you. Any other questions? So the question was getting an error doing the mini hack on the iOS challenge. Were you on stable or alpha? I
was on stable.
On stable. I have heard some reports of that. It is working for some people. I haven't had a chance to try and reproduce it this week yet.
Well, that was my question because I saw the async. Are you using the async in the component?
Not within the component.
I don't know. So you think it might be if we were on Xamarin.iOS beta, then it might work?
It could. I've seen a couple of people have problems, and then most of the ones who have talked to me have seemed to have fixed it. So I'll talk to you after.
OK.
In the back again?
Any idea how the barcode input would play out when you upload your app to the Xamarin Test Cloud?
How the input would happen? Yeah, that's a tough one. On iOS, obviously, you can't even mimic the live camera mode. We could maybe do something where we mock up a situation where it can load an image. So I have some ideas about that, seeing the Test Cloud launch, and I'm looking forward to trying to play with that.
You had mentioned some problems with iPad 3.
Yes, problems with iPad 3.
Yeah, I was trying to run mini hack on an iPad 3 right there.
Yeah, well, on iOS, what it's doing right now is basically taking a screen capture of what you're seeing to do the analysis. So an iPad 3 is a pretty high-resolution device, and it's not quite that powerful to process those images live. All right, well, looks like I'm the only thing left between you and beer, so thanks, guys, for coming out, and hope you keep using Zebra Crossing.